Well, I want to thank you for attending today's press conference for AB 1936. And before we get started, we want to go ahead and offer a traditional song, Blessing, opening up, so that we can continue to talk about these issues. We did get permission from the local tribal people, Miwok Nisenan, to offer this song. I'd like to bring up Joel Merrifield from the Round Valley Indian Tribal Council to offer a traditional blessing song.
Good morning, relatives. It's a beautiful day here. I just want to offer gratitude and humility to the breath of life and to this time in this space, and just offer gratitude for all the efforts that have been put forth to get this to this point in this day in life. So I just want to uplift all of our relatives here in the Sacramento Valley, from the top of the mountains to the sacred mountain of Mount Shasta to the coastal people here in Northern California, and just all our relatives down south. So just open your hearts and to uplift all of our peoples that have experienced oppression and any harm. So we just want to be here in a good way, in a wellness way, to give thanks to our Father God, to Creator, to our grandmothers and grandfathers that came before us, and just let us give thanks. Way-oh, 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 yo way, yo way, yo way. Way-oh, 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 yo way, yo way, yo way. And they know, 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 and they know. Way-oh, 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 yo way, yo way, yo way. Way-oh, 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 yo way, yo way, yo way. And they know, 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 and they know. Way-oh, 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 yo way, yo way, yo way. Way-oh, 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 yo way, yo way, yo way. And they know, 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 and they know. Oh, thank you. That's for you.
Thank you, brother. Well, thank you, and thank you for that. Let's give him a round of applause there. Always honoring our ancestors. And again, I want to welcome you all here today for this press conference on AB 1936, introduced by myself and Assembly Member Phil Ting, who will be speaking here shortly. We are also joined by Mona Onadasan, Vice Chair of the Yuki Committee to the Round Valley Tribal Council, also James Russ, President of the Round Valley Tribes, and Chancellor and Dean of the University of the Law School, David Fagman. And they will all be speaking in a few minutes. We are also joined by members of the legislature, members of the California Native American Legislative Caucus, and members of the legislature who will also be speaking a little bit later in the program. But we're gathered here today to urge support for AB 1936, a measure Assemblymember Ting and I have jointly authored that will be heard in Assembly Higher Education Committee today at 1:30 p.m. So we encourage those to go and show support for AB 1936. This bill would strike the name of Hastings from the University of the College of the Law through a collaborative effort and consultation process among the Round Valley Indian Tribes and the Yuki Committee and the College of the Law. It would also enact a restorative justice policy for the Yuki and Round Valley Indian people. I want to thank those who will be speaking for their ongoing commitment that has led to over 10 meetings where we work through some tough issues and where we are committed to continue to work together on the remaining issues that remain at hand. AB 1936 in its current form addresses 80% of the areas that we've agreed to in the process, with 20% remaining for us to continue to work. That's why it's important to have this bill move forward. A little background on Serenus Hastings. He paid for militias that brought genocide and atrocities upon the California Indian people in the Eden and Round Valley, and brought turmoil to the Yuki Indian people. However, the deadly means that Hastings used to build his wealth and help fund the law school has received little scrutiny until now. Starting on October of 2021, the school agreed to move forward to separate from the name of Hastings. Since that point in time, I have coordinated over 10 meetings that have brought forward the collaboration of Round Valley Indian tribes, the Yuki Indian Committee, and the law school. For too long, the voice of the California Indian people have been left out of discussions and decisions that center around historical trauma and actions inflicted upon them during the state's history. AB 1936 ensures that the voice of the California Indian people are at the table to have their voices heard. Back in 1878, no one in the legislature asked the Yuki or the Round Valley tribal people if Hastings was a good name for the law school. All that has changed with AB 1936, and for the first time, this ensures that the voices that has been left out of previous discussions to address and speak directly to restorative justice components that are needed are at the table for the first time. A restorative justice that starts to acknowledge a traumatic history of the past and looks forward to a future of healing. AB 1936, in collaboration with the stakeholders mentioned, will continue this work moving forward. My own clan, the Yohaviatham clan of the San Bernardino Mountains, suffered also in the 1866 of a militia that was formed where we were almost wiped off this earth, dwindling down to less than 30 members. So it is personal for me to ensure that the voices of the California Indian people are heard in these discussions. It is difficult to understand the continued impact of that trauma, but I do know that it begins with acknowledgement of a horrid past, and that having our people at the table will establish a mutual respect and will set a course towards a positive future. The process may take time, but then again, it's taken over 140 years for us to be at this podium to talk and to have the Indian people at the table around these discussions. This is about more than simply moving on or changing the name on a letterhead. It is about helping to build a new relationship, building within the state, its institutions, and the California's first people who will have a voice at the table. That is why so many other tribes and tribal associations are supporting this bill, such as the Barona Band of Mission Indians, California Nations Indian Gaming Association, Cajito Tribe, Coyote Valley Band of Pomo Indians, Habba Motel, Pomo of Upper Lake, the San Manuel Tribal Government, the Santa Ynez Band of Chumash Indians, Sherwood Valley a Band of Pomo Indians, Tule River, Yurok, and UC Hastings Alumni for Justice and Accountability. The events of the past cannot be undone, but hopefully this piece of legislation will bring about meaningful change and relationships, building and healing for the Yuki people and the people around Valley, and start the process for all California Indian people in the state of California. At this time, I'd like to invite my joint author to come up and say a few words, Assembly Member Phil Ting, Chairman of the Budget Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Ramos. Assemblymember Ramos, really appreciate your leadership. You're bringing us together today. I think you aptly summarized the history of why we are here. And I think Assemblymember Ramos walked us through all the atrocities that were done to the Round Valley Indian tribe and to the Yuki people in particular by Mr. Hastings. And the first part of any restorative justice process is to acknowledge a wrong, acknowledge an apology. And I do want to thank the dean and the entire Hastings family, the alumni, the board, for taking that very, very large step forward to acknowledge that. And let me also just thank the Round Valley Indian tribes and the Yuki people for being here today, for continuing that work to put that story forward. A story, as my colleague Mr. Ramos said, many of us didn't know very much about until a few years ago, until the attention was called. And so we know that we have quite a bit to do to go through that restorative justice process. And I want to thank all the stakeholders for coming today to say that this is something that we agree on. We have to have restorative justice. We have to talk about our history. We have to have this acknowledgement. It's not simply enough just to change the name, but we have to have programming. We have to have acknowledgement within the university to talk about the history. It can't just be something that in 100 more years we just forget about and go about our way. But one thing that, the reason this is so important to this law school in particular, and my district office is about a block away from this law school, this law school, more than almost any other public law school in California, is really the people's law school. I got to know this law school when I was the executive director of the Asian Law Caucus. Everybody who applies to law school, they always talk about all the good they're going to go do for the public. That's on everybody's application. Very, very rarely do you apply to say, I'm going to go make lots of money, go be a corporate lawyer. But this law school in particular puts their money where their mouth is. Their clinics on racial justice, their clinics on workers' rights, their clinics on a whole host of issues. We relied on their volunteers, on their students, to host our workers' rights clinics for waitresses, for sweatshop workers who were not getting paid a fair wage, who weren't getting paid unemployment. But if we didn't have their law students, we would not have been able to go forward with those clinics and to serve the people of San Francisco. And that's why it's even more important that we do this together as a community, because this really is the people's law school. And as the people, we have to come back and say, what is the appropriate name? What is the appropriate restoration? What really is the appropriate action that needs to be taken? And I really appreciate this bill in particular, who's really walked us through much of the restorative justice process. I think that's been done quite well. And as Mr. Assemblymember Ramos talked about, we still have a little bit of ways to go, which is very typical in any legislative process, that we go through a discussion, we bring our stakeholders together, and by the end of the year, we come together with a full product. And I have complete confidence that under Mr. Ramos's leadership, all of the stakeholders coming together, that we will be able to reach a grand compromise, a grand agreement, and I very, very much look forward to that process. I very much look forward to all joining us together at the end of the fall to be able to have a new name, to move forward with the restorative justice process, and something that we can all proudly say that we were all a part of and walking together step in step, hand in hand. So thank you very much for all your hard work, Mr. Ramos, and very much appreciate being able to support everybody today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chairman. Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. At this time, I'd like to bring up Mona Dotson, Vice Chair of the Yuki Committee.
I'd like to thank Assemblyman Ramos and Assemblyman Ting for bringing this bill forward, and especially honored by Assemblyman Ramos to bring us to the table to allow our voices to be heard at these 10 different meetings. And we look forward to more difficult conversation in changing the name, and we wholeheartedly support AB 1936. Thank you.
Thank you, Mona. Thank you, Mona, for that. And we've had 10 meetings and more scheduled to continue the dialogue moving forward. At this time, I'd like to bring up the president of the Round Valley Indian Tribes, President Jim Russ.
Good morning. First, I'd like to thank our Creator for bringing us all together here today and acknowledge that it's just a beautiful, beautiful day today. And couldn't be a more perfect day to bring some very important issues to light, like has been talked about today. So I'd like to thank him. I'd also like to thank Assemblyman Ramos, Assemblyman Ting, for bringing this bill forward. And in particular, Assemblyman Ramos for taking a lead role in bringing us together to continue the story, continue the work that we've been doing. It's been mentioned that there were 10 meetings. It seems like it's been about 110. But anyway, it's been good work. And I give a lot of credit to not only to the Assemblyman Ramos, but to Mona Wanda-san, who's the vice chair of the UKI committee, and also to Dean Fegman as well, for coming together. And it hasn't been easy. It's been very difficult at times. But you have to remember that this is a very difficult subject that we're talking about. It's not easy to just bring up these issues and discuss them as if it was just, a daily thing. The historic trauma that all of our tribes experienced is well documented in California and across the nation. So we're looking at this as just a starting point to where we can bring some of the social justice issues to the forefront, and hopefully other tribes will be looking at their past and their histories too, and I'm sure that will happen. Today I speak out in favor of AB 1936, and the Tribal Council of Round Valley Indian Tribes fully supports that bill, and for a few reasons. One of them is that we did do a lot of work coming together and spending time getting to know each other, dealing with these difficult issues. It just brings a closeness that you just can't imagine when you're talking with the people about these issues. So that was one thing, so our voices could be heard. And like I said, and then hopefully other folks, other tribes will be able to bring their issues forward as well. So this process has given us, as Indian people, a place at the proverbial table, and we appreciate that because, as has been said just a few minutes ago, that it took 140 years for this to come to the forefront, but everything happens for a reason, and this is the forefront right now. So we look forward to working with the college, our own UKI committee from the tribe, and with the legislative process to try to get some things done on this. And the other thing that I would like to mention is that in the AB 1936, one of the things that we feel is crucial is that it does address restorative justice issues. And those have been kind of tense at times, but I think there's been good work in moving those forward, and I think there's been good collaboration in talking about what would be appropriate. And as Assemblyman Ting said just a few minutes ago, that maybe we're not really sure, he didn't say this verbatim, but we may not really be sure where we're going with this, but it just takes time to kind of flesh this stuff out. And his exact words were that, what restorative justice, like what is going to become of that? And so anyway, I appreciate those words. And I appreciate the work that the legislatures have done to move this bill forward. So anyway, we look forward, the Round Valley Indian Tribes, we look forward to working in a good way, in a good manner, in a positive direction on coming together and bringing forth these issues that are really tense at times, but we're looking forward that they'll be productive and that we'll be doing it in a positive manner. So I'd like to thank once again all of the folks that are involved with this bill, and look forward to testifying today at the hearing. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you. Thank you for that. And they are tough discussions, but those that are committed are at the table, continuing to have the dialogue move forward. And the Chancellor and Dean of the law school has been at the table, offering input and working together in collaboration with the Yuki Indian people and Round Valley Indian tribes. So at this time, I'd like to bring up to the podium the Chancellor and Dean of the law school, Dean Bagman.
Thank you, Assemblymember Ramos. I want to begin by thanking President James Rust, Yuki Committee Member Mona Awandason, and especially Assemblymember James Ramos for all their efforts with the college to craft legislation that would provide a blueprint for the school and the tribes around Valley to work together in mutually beneficial ways going forward for us together to define concrete efforts of restorative justice and to move the process forward by removing the name Hastings from our law school. Mr. Ramos's Assembly Bill, AB 1936, is part of a long-standing process of identifying restorative justice opportunities by which students, faculty, and alumni of the college can work in partnership with the Round Valley Indian tribes and the Yuki Committee to define initiatives that will benefit all of these communities. While these initiatives focus on bringing relief to the descendants of the victims of violence against Native Californians, they will also benefit the law school's community, especially by educating our students regarding the legal framework that supported violence against the state's indigenous populations at California's origin. This process of restorative justice among our communities began in 2017, when I first learned of the history of our founders' actions in and around Round Valley that resulted in the deaths of hundreds of Yuki tribal members. That year, I appointed what came to be known as a Hastings Legacy Review Committee, which examined the history of Sir Ernest Hastings' actions in the 1850s, reached out to the tribes of Round Valley, and began defining restorative justice efforts in collaboration with tribal leaders. The Legacy Review Committee provided the report to me, and I subsequently supplied a report to the Hastings Board of Directors. The core recommendation of those reports was to prioritize restorative justice efforts with the tribes around Valley, and in so doing, develop trust and friendship between our communities. Although the pandemic interfered with the timing of some of our work, a number of initiatives were started over the last 4 years, including having multiple consultations between college officers and tribal leaders, establishment of an Indigenous Law Center at the college, the set-aside of highly visible space in the lobby of the school's main administration building, a commemoration of the Yuki to be defined and filled in by the Yuki people, and creation of student summer fellowships in nonprofit legal services and tribal courts to work on Indigenous issues. These are but some of the initiatives started and contemplated for this work. AB 1936 is thus the continuation of efforts that the college and Round Valley tribes started more than 4 years ago. We are excited to have it continue to grow organically, with California legislation laying the foundation on which further work can be built. As AB 1936 moves through the legislative process, the college is committed to continuing to work with Assemblymember Ramos, Assemblymember Ting, and others to refine the bill to incorporate input from all stakeholders and interested parties. We expect that the final bill will remove the name Hastings from the law school and settle upon a range of restorative justice opportunities that are appropriate for a law school to undertake. I look forward to working with President Rust, Ms. Awandason, and Assemblymember Ramos as we continue the process of framing a bill that will allow us to move forward to what truly matters here, defining opportunities for the law school to work in true partnership with the tribes of Round Valley on restorative justice. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Well, thank you for that. And certainly the bill will move forward to remove the name of Hastings from the College of the Law, but it's by working together, as you've heard over and over from the stakeholders, working together with the Round Valley Indian tribes, with the Yuki Indian people, in the college with Chancellor and Dean Hegman, that we continue to work on these issues in collaboration to make sure that we're leading the way and building a blueprint for others in the state of California, other California Indian people, to start to address these issues. With me today are members of the legislature. We have Assembly Member Cristina Garcia, Assembly Member Isaac Bryan, Assembly Member Devin Mathis, Assemblywoman Sharon Quirk Silva, Assemblywoman Wendy Carrillo, and Assembly Member Alex Lee with us today. We will go ahead and open up the podium for the members of the legislature to say a few words if they would like so, starting with Assembly Member Cristina Garcia.
Good morning. I'm going to be brief. We are here about AB 1936, but I want to thank everyone involved, all the stakeholders, the Yuki Committee, the Round Valley Tribal Council, Mr. Ramos, for their leadership to create a blueprint, not just for how we work around this law school, but a blueprint for the rest of California to follow. Restorative justice takes time. Restorative justice is difficult and it's painful out there. And the process that has been ongoing with the many meetings, whether it's 10 or 110, speaks to the commitment. But I want to just appreciate the work that's being done to create a role model so that we continue to add the voice of California as First People and be a role model for the rest of the nation of how we start to build justice for everyone. And so just appreciative to be here, humbled to be able to be part of today and part of this process and to be a co-author of AB 1936. Thank you to everybody.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'd like to bring up to the podium Assembly Member Wendy Carrillo.
Thank you, Assemblymember Ramos. My name is Wendy Carrillo. I proudly represent Northeast LA and East Los Angeles in the 51st Assembly District and a proud member of the Native American Caucus. I'm so grateful for all of your leadership and for everyone that's here today. Most importantly, I just want to take a moment to acknowledge where we are amid the Rose Garden in the Capitol Park. Spring is a time of new beginnings, new awakenings. Spring blooms, and I can't help but think of how justice blooms, and how restorative justice blooms, and how the work and history and lives and dignity of California Native American people blooms. There is a resurgence for what is right, what is truth, and the changes that need to happen across not only California, but across the nation when it comes to acknowledging our past and ensuring that our future is brighter than our past. And so as I look around the roses, as I look around everyone that's here today, as I look upon the leadership of our state legislature and the work that is being done through the Native American Caucus, I know that justice will continue to bloom. And for that, I am grateful. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, thank you so much for that. And at this time, I'd like to bring up Assemblywoman Sharon Quirk Silva.
Good morning. Hard to follow the bloom metaphor, but it is a beautiful place, and I often walk this way and do take time to smell the roses, so I hope you all will do that. But we're here to acknowledge the work of the Yuki tribe and the injustice that we know that names bring. And Hastings College means something personally to me, as my son is there finishing up his first year at Hastings College. So I'm really proud of the work that Assemblymember Ramos, the Yuki tribe, and also the dean here is working at. We know that changing a name is one step, but what is much more impactful is what that name change brings. In Fullerton, where I live, we just had a name change on a historic building of a former white supremacist, and that name was changed, but there has been no follow-up, and that building sits on a high school campus. and there has been no follow-up curriculum or discussion to bring to the students of why that was made. So it really is imperative that it's not just a name change, but it's also followed up with credible meetings and bringing others in to understand these changes. And thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that. And at this time, I'd like to bring up my good friend, and a lot of these issues are bipartisan, so I'd like to bring up my good friend, Devin Mathis, to say a few words.
A lot of good comments already said. I'll just simply say this. When it comes to issues of restorative justice, when it comes to issues like this with our indigenous people, we have to take the steps to confront a very brutal past and to grow from it as a community, bringing everybody together. And that's one of the big steps we've done with the Native American Caucus, and that we will continue to do. So just thank you all for the hard work on this. A lot of it's gut-wrenching, it's heartbreaking, but we have to confront it. It's not about erasing history. It's about understanding history and growing and moving forward from it. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. Also, I'd like to bring up my good friend, Assemblymember Alex Lee.
Thank you so much to Assemblymember Ramos and the tribal leaders for being here today and showing an incredible amount of leadership. You know, there's much more, as we've all heard, to more than just a name, but the significance of the name and the history and the values that are reflected in these institutions. I'm Assemblymember Alex Lee. I proudly represent in the Bay Area, Santa Clara and Alameda counties, which is a traditional and historical lands of the Mwekma Ohlone people. And I think it's important that we're on the path right now to having restorative justice. As important as it is to, and comfortable sometimes it is, to confront our ugly racist history in this country, we also have to take the steps to acknowledge it and move on from that. And while I may come from Chinese community, which I don't share the same traditions and historical oppression of the indigenous community, I understand the parallels in which, you know, a country that does not accept our people can erase our history. I just think about how just this last summer in my hometown of San Jose, we finally apologized for completely razing to the ground and burning one of the largest Chinatowns that existed in the country in the 1800s. And it was completely paved over, and there's no plaque or anything left to commemorate it. And that's why it's important to recognize the ugly history we have, but also move on with it and teach people about how not to repeat these atrocities. And what I think Assemblyman Ramos and tribal leaders doing this bill is incredibly important, because it brings not only the indigenous voice to the decision-making process in California, which has not always been included, but also making sure that we truly are having restorative justice and moving on and learning from history. So I really appreciate the effort and appreciate being part of the Native American Caucus. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Well, thank you, and thank you all for attending here today in support of AB 1936 that will be heard in higher ed on the Assembly side higher ed at 1:30 today. I want to thank all the presenters and all the speakers and the commitment to continue the hard work that still lies ahead of us. At this time, I'd like to open it up to see if there's any questions for any of us, the presenters, myself, at this time. I want to thank you for attending, and this is a step to start to build the relationship and the healing that was inflicted upon California's first people. I want to again acknowledge the willingness of the college to continue to sit down and work through some tough issues, as well as the Yuki Indian people and the Round Valley Indian Tribes President, Jim Russ. We still have a lot of work to do, but we are building a blueprint and a model for others in the state of California to follow, and to show that by building on mutual respect, all things are possible. And for once, having the California Indian people at the table to discuss these important issues that affects them is something that AB 1936 continues to move forward, and we commit to have that voice at the table during these discussions. I want to thank you all for attending. Okay.